We ask you to bless especially your children who have grown old. We appreciate their wisdom, their family stories, and the richness of their experience. Send your angels to keep them safe as long as they live, and to lead them home to you when their work is done. Bless the families of the elderly. We thank you for their smiles and patience when our parents are angry. Bless the elderly in homes and care centers. Amen.
Thanks, Grace. Even though we could not hear your voice, we'll hear your voice if your system is functioning with your voice. Okay, she's there. She's there. Grace and her little brother and her mom is there. They're all there. Okay, thank you very much, Grace. Okay, for writing this prayer. Okay, so let's move on to the topic and what I'm intending to do during this hour. Okay, I'll just introduce to you what is World Day of Grandparents and the Elderly. That's the first topic. What is the World Day of Grandparents? Most of us may know what it is. Those of us do not know what it is. I'll just introduce to that topic. Second, the pandemic context. What is the significance of this World Day of Grandparents and the Elderly in the context of pandemic? That is going on. We are in the second wave. Second wave is over. Third wave is predicted or coming or at the door or far away from the door. We do not know. But at the same time, let us be prepared. So what is the role of this World Day of Grandparents and the Elderly in the context of pandemic? Third topic, what is the significance of this day in our Christian context and more Catholic context? Okay. The fourth one, Father Peter Lourdes. He is one of our elderly persons in our community, 95 years old priest, COVID survivor. Last year he was affected by COVID. He is an ecologist, psychologist, therapist, spiritual yogi, many qualifications all into one. He will give his mind on various topics in life. I put some topics there. He will talk about old age, he'll talk about himself, he will talk about ecology, he'll talk about God, everything under the sun he will talk about. So I have put him on the various topics in between the presentation of this World Day of Grandparents and the Elderly. It's quite half an hour almost, but I have broken into small segments so that in between Father Peter Lourdes will come. And he will give his message on various topics on life. Then we also have something from Pope Francis, the three pillars of the elderly, which Pope Francis talks about. Three elements or three important identities of the elderly, which Pope Francis mentions in his message on this World Day of Grandparents and the Elderly. Number 6, what are the roles grandparents have to play in our lives, which again mentioned by Pope Francis in his message. What roles do they play in our families, in our society, in our church? And 7, our roles towards grandparents. We not only expect their roles to play in our lives, we also have our responsibilities towards grandparents and the elderly. That's the 7th one, and I conclude with a short message on the entire World Day of Grandparents. You can hear me? I'm okay, audible?
Yes, Father, we can hear you.
Okay, so I continue. So this is what, in short, we may take maximum 1 hour. Okay, we hope to finish in 1 hour. If not, be patient, like elderly people. Okay, so we will begin on the first topic. What is World Day of Grandparents and the Elderly? Let's go to the first topic. World Day of Grandparents and the Elderly. This is instituted by Pope Francis, this World Day, this year. It is mentioned by Pope Francis. The day will be every year, 4th Sunday of July. 4th Sunday of July. That is a day close to the feast of grandparents of Jesus, Saints Joachim and Anne. So we have this year the Monday after this fourth Sunday, 26. So 25th of July, this year, we celebrate the 25th because it's a Sunday, so all can participate, especially the Mass. That is very important on that day. That is the reason it was kept on Sunday. The feast of the grandparents of Jesus is the day after this year. So it will be a kind of fourth Sunday or Sunday, very close to the feast of Saints Joachim and Anne. This year it is 25th July 2021, and there is a message of Pope which I will be explaining it during this entire hour. I have taken from this message, which he released on 31st May. 31st May is the feast of visitation of our Blessed Mother. So on that day, he released this message. The title of the message is, I am with you always. So I will talk about it as I proceed on this World Day information. And Pope Francis has instituted other world days. For those of us who do not know other world days, John Paul II was the one who has instituted several world days. World Day of Youth, World Meet of Families, World Day of the Sick. There are several days he has in the World Day of the Consecrated Life, etc. That's all done by John Paul II. Pope Francis, much before this, 3 years back, he instituted World Day of the Poor. That is a Sunday before the solemnity of the Christ the King feast. That's normally in November. World Day of the Poor. That day we are supposed to have some kind of celebration with the poor people, not celebration among ourselves, celebration with the poor. Then this year, another World Day, Pope Francis did not institute. UN, United Nations introduced a new day, introduced in the calendar, International Day of Human Fraternity. UN introduced this day, that is on February 4th. Why that day and why this year onwards? Some days before, Pope Francis released a social teaching, an encyclical called Fratelli Tutti, brothers and sisters all. And based on that, UN was inspired, and also UN was inspired the year before, the last year, when Pope visited Abu Dhabi, Emirates, Abu Dhabi. He met the Imam, the Muslim leader, Imam of Abu Dhabi, and they signed a contract on human fraternity. So that was an inspiration for United Nations, that Pope and an Imam, Muslim Imam, made a contract. So based on that, UN said, let us have every year International Day of Human Fraternity. This year was the first one, February 4th. Then Protestant churches, or what we call, other sects, they already had one day for the day of creation, which was on September 1st. Pope Francis inducted that day, September 1st, already started by Protestant sects or other separated brethren, into Catholic Church. So we have in the Catholic Church a day called the World Day of Prayer for Care for Creation. That's September 1st. And again, the other Christian brethren, they already had season of creation from September 1st to October 4th. October 4th is the feast day of St. Francis of Assisi, patron of ecologists and ecology, environment, etc. So Pope Francis again inducted that celebration into Catholic Church last year onwards. It is called season of creation. So it is a kind of ecumenical. Ecumenical means Catholics, Protestants, Orthodox, everybody together. We are celebrating season of creation from every year, September 1st to October 4th, and World Day of Prayer for Care for Creation on September 1st, and International Day of Human Fraternity, not by the Catholic Church, but Catholic Church, the whole world is participating from this year onwards. That is announced by UN and Pope Francis' own World Day for the Poor. Now this is the second one, officially, World Day for the grandparents and the elderly. So that is the introduction to that.
I nonni tante volte sono dimenticati e noi dimentichiamo questa ricchezza di custodire le radici e di trasmettere. E per questo ho deciso di istituire la giornata mondiale dei nonni e degli anziani, che si terrà in tutta la Chiesa ogni anno la quarta domenica di luglio, in prossimità della ricorrenza dei santi Gioacchino e Anna, i nonni di Gesù. È importante che i nonni incontrano i nipoti e i nipoti si incontrino con i nonni, perché, come dice il profeta Gioele, i nonni davanti ai nipoti sogneranno, avranno l'illusione, e i giovani, prendendo forza dai nonni, andranno avanti, profetizzeranno.
Okay, that's words from Pope Francis about this World Day for grandparents and the elderly. Now let's go to the second topic, the pandemic context, especially this World Day in the context of pandemic. What is the context of pandemic and the significance of World Day? You know that several elders have died during the last 1 year during this pandemic. I'm sure some of your grandpas and grandmas, elderly fathers, elderly sisters, elderly people in care homes all died. Several elders went through this virus. Some of them survived. For Peter Lourdes, he was affected by coronavirus last year. Now he survived 95 years. But you know, that fortunate, you know, to come back, not all the elders had. Others, in fact, experienced the death or illness of their own spouses, their own contemporaries or peer groups. Let's put as peer groups. These elders experienced the loss of many of their spouses, many of their peer groups, friends, and of those age groups. So these people have gone through the suffering and seen suffering. Many of them died during this 1 year. And that's the first reason. Second, loneliness has entered into many elders during the past 1 year. Being alone, in isolation, many a times for these young people, for these elderly people. You know, in our house, we have few elderly sick fathers. Almost 1 year, they are in isolation because we did not want them to mix with us. We who are always mixing with, you know, people from outside, we don't want to be carriers of virus to our elderly fathers. So they are almost in isolation most of the time. And that is an acute experience of pain, being cut off from the rest of the society, rest of the family, rest of the community. That's a pain, tremendous amount of pain. Most of the elderly people that go through during these past years. And that has affected most of the elders. Now, continuing on this, Pope Francis says this statement: may every grandfather, every grandmother, every older person, especially those among us who are most alone, receive the visit of an angel. So this is his dream, this is his wish, that every elderly person, you know, experience the visit of an angel. Who is this angel he's talking about? Angel from heaven? No. He's talking about angels, human beings. Who could be? Angels, we are the human beings with wings. At times, these angels, he says, are grandchildren, family members, our friends, neighbors. You know, they are the angels. So his wish and dream during this pandemic, and when the pandemic is over, you know, we people would be little angels to these elderly people. That is his wish during the pandemic to even after pandemic. These elderly people long for human touch, human presence in their lives. That's the first thing. Let us go to the Christian context of this World Day. So that's a social context I talked about, which Pope Francis talked about. What is the Christian context of this World Day of grandparents and the elderly? The Christian context is the context of grandparents of Jesus. And now this is how Pope Francis introduced this World Day of grandparents and the elderly in the context of grandparents of Jesus. Now, watch the phrase grandparents of Jesus. Many of us Catholics do not use this phrase when we think of Saints Joachim and Anne. When we think of Saints Joachim and Anne, most of us think about the parents of Blessed Virgin Mary, parents of Mother Mary. That is not the correct way of associating Saints Joachim and Anne. And most of our pictures of Saints Joachim and Anne, more than the Saint Joachim, Saint Anne. Saint Anne is always associated with Mother Mary, the little Mary. You see the picture there. But for us Catholics, these people, Joachim and Anne, not because so much they are the parents of Mother Mary, but they are the grandparents of Jesus. There is a difference. The why? Grandparents' role in the life of Jesus. What role did they play? So that is what Pope Francis mentioned in this message. Though some of us may associate Joachim and Anne, and much more Anne, poor Joachim does not get the limelight as Anne in most of our reference to the parents of Mother Mary or grandparents of Jesus. How do these grandparents play this role? He says, even in the lives of Joachim and Anne, they had the feelings of isolation, rejection from the society, especially felt by Saint Joachim. Pope Francis mentions, especially in his message, Saint Joachim had the tremendous amount of feeling and experience of rejection, isolation from the society of his time. Now, where do you get this information? Bible does not speak about grandparents of Jesus. And where do you get the names of Joachim and Anne? It is coming from extra biblical writings or outside biblical writings which were not part of the Bible. There were other books which were not approved by the church as part of the Bible, and one of them is called actually Gospel of James or Proto-Evangelium of St. James. This was written in the 2nd century, Proto-Evangelium. It is called Apocrypha. For us Catholics, we call it Apocrypha. It's a Gospel of James written in 2nd century. It is there the reference to the parents of Mother Mary or the grandparents of Jesus mentioned as Saints Joachim and Saint Anne. And there are reference to Joachim's experience. Joachim was well advanced in age, both of them. And when they are advanced in age without children, they do not have children. Having no children in biblical times is like a curse. Almost ostracized from the society and from the religion. So these people, these grandparents, experience at their old age a kind of isolation and rejection. And in fact, Pope Francis mentions, adding to this Gospel of James reference, he added to one of the paintings of 14th century artist, Giotto, an Italian artist. This particular painting is called Dream of Saint Joachim. Dream of Joachim, painted in 1305. Pope Francis mentions about this painting in his message. You see there Saint Joachim, sleeping almost, and the dream is visualized in that painting. Giotto captures the scene of that dream at night. Where is Joachim sitting? Outside the house, and in fact rejected, from the society and the home, etc. And sleepless nights he would have spent. This is what Pope Francis says, with worries and memories and longings in his mind that is going on. And this particular mental agony that Saint Joachim went through, the artist Giotto, painted as a dream of Joachim. You can see the cubicle hut. Joachim almost contained into that cubicle hut there. And you see a kind of communication that is going on with the angel that appears in the dream to Joachim. And it is in a diagonal form, if you look at the painting. And that reminds those artists, a kind of tension between angel and Joachim. In art, diagonal formats are always in tension. If it is horizontal formats, figures, etc. It is always calm, peace, etc. Why the painter, artist, put these two people in communication diagonal position, kind of tension that goes on between these two people. And you can see in the stillness of the scene that is broken by the liveliness of the sheep day and the shepherds keeping vigil. Sheep are very alive. So that is a painting Pope Francis mentioned, the experience of isolation, rejection at his old age, Joachim went through. And in the loneliness of the elderly, the Lord sends his angels to communicate the message, I am with you. Exile like the angel came to St. Joachim, according to this Gospel of St. James, which is not a biblical book, Apocrypha we call. We, the elders, the grandparents, actually in their loneliness, angels come and tell them with this message, I am with you. And Pope Francis would say those angels are each one of us. Now let us go to the three pillars of these elders Pope Francis mentioned. He mentions about three pillars all the elders have. That is dreams, memory, and prayer. Let's explain a little bit on these three elements elders go through in life. Dreams, memory, and prayer. And we have beautiful reference to this from Joel, which Pope Francis already mentioned in the beginning when I played his video. Prophet Joel says, your old men shall dream dreams, and your young men will have visions. The visions or what the young men actually see and experience are coming from the dreams of elderly. So we are the ones who implement or actualize the dreams of our grandparents. No, they go through those and they have those dreams. And what are those dreams? Very important for us to know. The dreams of justice, the dreams of peace, the dreams of solidarity of this elderly are to be realized in the young children, the young people today, present generation today. Elderly people experience this. They have this dream. Why these dreams of justice and peace? If you look at the most of the elders, 70 plus, 80 plus elders. Okay, let us look at that generation, 80 plus. Pope Francis says they have gone through tough times. Look at your own elderly parents or grandparents. It's not the way we live now. Now we are going through pandemic, a little struggle. But they had tougher struggles in their younger age. And they know how to pull it through. War. One after another war, they must have First World, Third World, Second World War, civil wars, etc. Poverty, misery during those times. And most of the elderly have memories of war. 80 plus, 90 plus grandparents. And the young should learn from the elderly, especially the value of peace. This is one thing we should learn from them actually. They have gone through tough times and they have pulled it through those tough times. And Pope Francis remembers his own grandparents. Pope Francis originally Italian. His grandparents are Italian. And they left Italy and their relatives, friends, property, everything, and to settle in Argentina and emigrated to Argentina. They had a tough time when they left Italy and started to settle in Argentina. Pope Francis remembers and recalls how his grandparents struggled in the early years of their life in Argentina. I'm sure not only Pope Francis' grandparents, all our grandparents, all our elderly have gone through this struggle. Okay, now let us go to one of the elderly of our community, 95 years. Let me introduce Father Peter Lourdes. He's still here, with us. COVID survivor. I still remember when he was affected by COVID, his oxygen level was going down. Father Patrick, another father who is in our community, was so tense. Few nights we could not sleep to get a hospital bed for him. In fact, I remember the day he was admitted, I was rushing to Mother Teresa sisters to get oxygen cylinder, to put the oxygen cylinder for him if there was no hospital bed. Luckily, when I brought the oxygen cylinder to him, we already got a hospital bed and we rushed into hospital. And miraculously, he survived. He's still fully all right, mentally all right. a very calm person, counselor, psychologist, therapist, ecologist. I am going to present him at various stages on various topics he talks about. He will now introduce himself for all of us.
I am Father Peter Lourdes, a Salesian of Don Bosco, belonging to Calcutta province. My name at home was Vincent Peter Lourdes, but my father wanted me to keep Peter as my priestly name. So now I'm Peter Vincent Lourdes. My mother was an Anglo-Indian. Her father was Anglo-Indian. Her mother was Bengali. By some reason or other, married a Tamilian from Pondicherry by the name of Joseph David Lourdes. Up to now, I don't know how they met, how they got married. I was born in Calcutta, Linton Street, and baptized at St. Jesus Church. After my ordination, I got an appointment in Don Bosco, Lilwa, my old school. And there, from one of the children, I caught mumps and lost hearing in my right ear. This right ear is nerve deaf. I carried on with left ear for a long time, but now it has deteriorated. So I asked for retirement from Don Bosco province, and I'm in retirement now, not active in any of the ministries, and I'm not active also in the community life because I don't hear much of what they say and do. My training has been in psychology. I got a diploma from Rome, and I got a doctorate from America, and then a master's from San Francisco in America again. So that's been my life. And I've done a lot of counseling, mostly in my past with clergy, priests, sisters, religious. I worked for about 20 years in National Vocation Service Center, and I used to conduct the group therapy courses for that center. And so most of my clients were within the church setting. Later on, when I left that center and came back to Calcutta, I was counseling here in Don Bosco's Nitika, and most of my clients were a whole variety. I even had one chap who called himself Raja. He had a kingdom in Bihar. A great variety. My youngest client was 7-year-old. I still remember her real.
So that is about a little introduction about Father Peter Lourdes. Father Peter Lourdes will come back again several times during this presentation. Let us continue with the 3 pillars of elders. And let us go to the last pillar, prayer. And Pope Francis says the best example for the prayer in the elderly, by the elderly, for the elderly is Pope Benedict XVI Emeritus now. Okay, he's still alive. He is one of the most elderly person in our Catholic Church, most eligible elderly person in the Catholic Church. Pope Benedict XVI speaks about prayer and the elderly. This very beautiful statement he makes. The prayer of the elderly can protect the world, helping it perhaps more effectively than the frenetic activity of many others. Now, we who are running around, we who are worried about so many things, stressed and worn out, the prayer of the elderly, perhaps more effective. And you see the 2 elderly popes, even Pope Francis elderly, okay, they pray together. The prayer of the elderly will be very effective. And it's good to ask our elderly people to pray for us, in fact. One of the very beautiful roles elderly people can play in our lives. Let us continue on the role on the person, Father Peter Lourdes. He will talk about ecology. Now,
Ecology is concerned, I'm not an expert. I've done my own readings here and there for a long time. But after I was discharged from hospital from COVID, I came to this room and this balcony. And outside I found this jungle mango trees, coconut trees, all sorts of things. A little jungle. And for me, this was heaven. As soon as I saw it, I remembered the words of Thomas Merton in a book called Seeds of Contemplation. He says the whole of creation is an incarnation of an idea in the mind of God. And those words came back to me as I saw them. I don't see them anymore as trees. I see them as living creatures. I call this mango tree Ma Mango. The other one there, Barima. The coconut tree is her sons. The other tree is her daughters. This is the Baipo's in-laws. Those are the neighbors. Every morning after Mass, I come here, I look at them and ask them, where is your Creator? He must be somewhere hanging around there. And then I sing to them, in you we live and move and have our being. Of His fullness we all have received. Then I invite them to join me and sing together to God directly. In you we live and move and have our being. Of His fullness we all have received. Every morning just I pray to them, and I sit for a while looking at all of them. And I tell them, you share the isness of God. Where is it? Of His isness we all have received. And they have done a lot of good to my health. Sitting in front of them, I have improved a great deal. Sitting in front of them. So I told the nurse to put a chair right in the beginning. And I told her, this is my refreshment corner. I rest on that easy chair, door open, and I told her, jungle ka hawa, panka ka hawa se acha hai. The breath of the jungle is better than that of the electric fan. It's doing something to me. I don't know what. I talked to it. And as I talked to it, I came across these words from the fourth Eucharistic prayer. Partial quote. The words say that we may enter into heavenly inheritance, and there, with the whole of creation, free from the corruption of sin and death, may we glorify you. The fourth Eucharistic prayer is saying, they are marked out for salvation like me. They are no more matter. They are spirit having material experiences, as Colorado, not Colorado, but Teilhard de Chardin said. We are all spiritual beings first, having material experiences, including them.
Okay, that is his approach towards ecology, environment. Let us continue on the role of the elderly. The roles of the elderly, what roles do they play? Pope Francis says, to preserve our roots, to pass on the faith to the young. They are the people who have gone for a long time. They lived much more than us, much longer than us. So they continue and connect to us the roots and of the past, especially even of the faith. So they are the best faith educators, faith formators in the family. They are the people who have to teach the grandchildren the rudiments, the basics of faith, in fact. And Pope Francis emphasized this particular role of elderly, the grandparents. That means they have a role towards faith education of the children. In Christus Vivit, a document on the young people, article number 262, Amoris Laetitia, a document on family, article number 192. He speaks about the role of grandparents in educating faith to the children, to their grandchildren. So that is one basic, most important role they have to play and they need to play. And Pope Francis says there is no retirement date in handing down faith to the children. So since I am old, I should not teach. No, all of us can still teach till our death. Our life teaches, our death also teaches life. So there is retirement days. There is no retirement. There is no retirement days in handing down faith to the children. Okay, no is missing. There is no retirement days. Okay, Pope Francis says. And grandparents and elderly, according to Pope Francis, in another document, Gaudete et Exsultate, he says they are the saints next door. What do you mean by saints next door? They are our saints living with us. They are the living saints. You know, when we think of canonized and recognized, approved saints in the Catholic Church, Pope Francis mentions about saints who are living with us. And he mentions, especially in that document, Gaudete et Exsultate, grandparents. Most of our grandparents are saints. Our elderly are saints next door. Honor them. Okay, let us go back to Father Peter Lourdes on old age.
To tell you frankly, I have never felt myself old, though I'm 95 now. For some reason, you don't feel my age. I don't know whether that's wise or not, but I don't. But you can talk about old age if you count your birth by calendar time. But if you count your birth by turning points in your life, you don't have an old age. You'll be very, very young. When I retired from Salesian work, it was not because of old age, my hearing was going. So the provincial secretary was printing a directory of all of us. You had to put our names and what work we were doing in the province. So I told him, you put retirement ministry. He said, there's no such name. I said, coming to terms with retirement and old age is a spirituality. You need time to develop that. So that's my work and contribution to the congregation. I continue still with some counseling, but as my hearing deteriorated, I left that, and now I'm doing retirement ministry, trying to find the meaning, age, and no more action and contemplation.
Okay, Pope and the elderly. Let us listen to Pope now. What he talks about the role and our role towards elderly.
During the Mass at the start of his pontificate, he asked for people to care for the elderly in particular, since they are often pushed to the margins of the heart. A few months afterward, at World Youth Day in Brazil, he spoke to young people about the importance of listening to their elders.
Esta civilización mundial se pasó de rosca, porque es tal el culto que ha hecho al Dios dinero que estamos presenciando una filosofía y una praxis de exclusión de los dos polos de la vida que son las promesas de los pueblos. No se cuida a los ancianos, pero también esta eutanasia cultural, no se los deja hablar, no se los deja actuar.
Pope Francis knows that grandparents play an essential role in the lives of children, and he knows this by experience, thanks to the love of his grandmother, Rosa. This is how he explained it in a catechesis dedicated to grandparents.
Le parole dei nonni hanno qualcosa di speciale per i giovani e loro lo sanno. Le parole che la mia nonna mi consegnò per iscritto il giorno della mia ordinazione sacerdotale le porto ancora con me sempre nel breviario e le leggo spesso e mi fa bene.
This is why he never tires of denouncing the abuses committed against the elderly, who are marginalized in society. He even says that this is a sin.
È brutto vedere gli anziani scartati. È cosa brutta, è peccato.
The elderly are of particular importance in the Pope's eyes as the collective memory of communities and, above all, of families.
Preghiamo per i nostri nonni, le nostre nonne, che tante volte hanno avuto un ruolo eroico nella trasmissione della fede in tempo di persecuzione, quando papà e mamma non c'erano a casa e anche avevano idee strane che la politica di quel tempo gli insegnava, sono state le nonne quelle che hanno trasmesso la fede.
In fact, the Pope thinks that the elderly are so important that he was the first to organize an event in the Vatican dedicated to them. It was a very special day, and with a rare appearance by Benedict XVI, whom Pope Francis tenderly called a wise grandfather.
Io ho detto tante volte che mi piaceva tanto che lui abitasse qui in Vaticano, perché era come avere il nonno saggio a casa. Grazie.
The Pope lamented the forgetting of and the violence towards the elderly, and he explained that the experience of grandparents is irreplaceable.
È una delle cose più belle della vita di famiglia, della nostra vita umana di famiglia, è carezzare un bambino e lasciarsi carezzare da un nonno e di una nonna.
The Pope backs up his words with deeds. In general audiences, meetings, and trips, Pope Francis never misses an opportunity to greet the elderly or to listen to them.
Okay, final one from Father Peter Lowe speaks about God in his life.
God in my life. I was born and baptized a Catholic, but my mother was a Protestant. I don't know when she converted, maybe before marriage. She became a hard-boiled Catholic. She told me not to play with Protestants. Well, twice in my life, I had a period of atheism. I found it hard to prove that there was a God. Once during theology, studying in Malay, and once during my first years in Rome, studying psychology. I tried to read the great French giants, Jean Giotto and Maritain, but I couldn't get anywhere. Except that, although I couldn't prove that there was a God, my gut was saying there is something. I could not fight my gut. My gut reaction was pro the existence of God. Gradually, the existence of God came back. But I was greatly devoted to Jesus Christ and to the Sacred Heart. I did a lot of work for Sacred Heart. During my theology years, I was in charge of promoting that devotion. Our chapel was called Sacred Heart Church. The leaflet was run by me alone. And I was very much devoted to Sacred Heart. But then I found later on, Sacred Heart passed me on to God. And I was focused on God as a presence. Wherever I would go, I would feel this God as a presence. Later on, this God became isness, being, God as being. It's a very powerful experience, and I had some period of that. When I was studying comparative mysticism in America, I asked the professor, famous Richard Woods, what's the place of Jesus in the mystical experience? He says many mystics at some time passed from Jesus to God, to the presence or existence of God. This is one of our big problems in the study of mysticism. And I went like that to God. I am more attached to God than to Jesus now. Not against Jesus, but more attached. He passed me on. He must have said, I am the way to the Father, I passed you on. And this isness of God, his being, is very powerful with me. God's being, I'm sharing in that, you're sharing in that, they are sharing in that. Because God is, we are. If he stops ising, we'll disappear. When Moses asked him who you are at the burning bush, I am. When the Jews said, Jesus, you're not even 40, you're talking about Abraham. Before Abraham was, I am. My amness is the real thing. And that's where I have with God. His amness is isness, which he has shared with everything. That's why I tell him of his fullness. Sometimes I tell him of his isness, you all have received.
Now let us come to the final part. What can we do for this World Day of Grandparents and the Elderly? World Day has not yet reached. We have one more week. The Sunday after tomorrow, we have the World Day, July 25th. So all of us, this experience of this Father Peter Lourdes and message of Pope Francis, let us think of something that we can make it a memorable day, July 25th. Pray for your grandparents. That's the easiest and best thing all of us can do. Grandparents, elderly, and participate in the Sunday Mass of July 25th. If online or offline, in presence or not in presence, at least be connected, and have a special intention for the elderly and the grandparents and parents on that day. That's the best thing all of us can do. Second, if possible, visit the elderly, old age home. If not possible, digitally connect to them, if there is a possibility. We are like angels, exactly like letter to the St. James said, we are angels in disguise to these elderly people. So if we can be connected, at least have a visit, that is a very great things we can do for these elderly people in their lives. Listen to them. Just now you listened to Father Peter Lourdes. How often we miss this listening to this elderly. So let us listen to them, their words of wisdom. Their words of wisdom are from an era we have not lived. So let us be enriched and be enthused by their words of wisdom. These are few things we can do. We can do much more. At least this much we can do. Let me conclude with Pope Francis' message he wrote for this World Day of Grandparents at the beginning of his letter. He identifies himself as one of the elderly. When he writes to the elderly, it is addressed to the grandparents and elderly. And when he addressed the grandparents and elderly, I am one of you, he said. I am also an elderly person. And he says this to the elderly. Very strong words, very motivating words from Pope Francis. These are the words he spoke. He wrote inside, I was called to become the Bishop of Rome. Bishop of Rome means Pope. Okay. Another title for Pope is Bishop of Rome. So I was called to become the Bishop of Rome when I had reached, so to speak, retirement age, and thought I would not be doing anything new. But you see now, Pope Francis, several years after his papacy, he's still doing, he continues to do many things. So age is not bar for any one of us to retire. Exactly like Father Peter Lourdes says, if you count from birth from calendar, that is an age. But if you count the number of experience and turning points in our life, there is no old age for any one of us. And I conclude with this short message for you to listen. You know that the Lord is eternal. He never ever goes into retirement. God is never old. God is always present. God never retires. And we have no also retirement age, strictly speaking. We can do much more even in the retirement age. We can do a lot of things. You see what the elderly people are doing. Let us listen to some of the elderly people in our church, popes, and also in the Bible. Two elderly people I would like to mention other than Joachim and Anne, Simeon and Anna. They were also advanced in age. Let us learn from them a few lessons and conclude with this.
Angelo Roncalli was elected Pope at the age of 78. It's difficult to know for certain what the College of Cardinals had in mind, but some have suggested that Roncalli was elected to be a mere caretaker Pope. John the 23rd was anything but a caretaker pope. By summoning the Second Vatican Council, he inaugurated a great era of renewal within the Church. Roncalli had kept a journal for most of his adult life, and it's been published under the title Journal of a Soul. One entry in his journal was written during a retreat that he made during Holy Week of 1945. He was then aged 64. The journal entry reads, "I must not disguise from myself the truth. I am definitely approaching old age. My mind resents this and almost rebels, for I still feel so young, eager, agile, and alert. But one look in my mirror disillusions me." Well, it was to be another 13 years before Angelo Roncalli was elected Pope at the age of 78, taking the name John the 23rd. As Pope John the 23rd, he instigated a monumental period of renewal in the Church. And let's also remember Pope Benedict, also elected to the papacy at the age of 78, several years beyond the mandatory retirement age for bishops. And Pope Francis was elected Pope at the age of 76. Like Simeon and Anna, Popes John, Benedict, and Francis were called to do great things for God well beyond the traditional age of retirement. God's call has no use-by date, no statute of limitations.
Okay, that's all, folks. Let us live every age and stage of your lives and our lives, and God's call has no expiry date.
I wish all of them this experience that I've had, that although I'm aging, I don't feel my age. I don't feel I'm 95. I don't know why. But I thank God, and I wish that happens to all of you.
The final word from Father Peter Lourdes.